Hello, Professor. Our project is about the impact of COVID-19 on Japan's economy. Our team are Laris, Yuki, Samer, and me, Nariman Hashim. This is the context of the project. We are going to talk about the impact of the COVID-19 on the Japan's economy, how the government responded to it, and analysis to the government responses. I'll begin by economic impact of Japan's economic impact of COVID-19 on Japan's economy. As Japan is basically known for being the third largest economy in the world, it had faced a collapse in its economy due to the COVID-19 impact. Before it got hit by the pandemic, Japan's economy was suffering by a pressure in 2019 as a result of a decrease in the demand of China and many other importing nations due to the rise of the consumption tax from 8 to 10%. This, however, also after the pandemic hit the economy, in the first quarter, Japan's economy had collapsed because of the decrease of the consumers' expenditure, purchasing power had decreased, and the slow of spread of vaccine. In the beginning of COVID-19, Japan was one of the first countries to close schools and set rules and regulations for public safety measures in order to be able to decrease the number of people who got infected. Japan depends on exportation and importation to cover its decrease in the economy as a result of decrease in the consumer consumption due to as a result of the coronavirus. Japan was depending mainly on its exportation in manufacturing, technology, and industry sector. In 2020. The first period was January to March. Japan's economy shrunk by 0.6%, which was reliable to face recession in the coming quarters due to the decrease in exportation, shortage of global ships, and decrease in the capital expenditure due to the decrease in the consumer consumption because of the COVID-19. However, the Cabinet Office reported that the period of April to June quarter was the GDP growth has fallen to 7.8%, which is equivalent to 485 trillion yen. This is considered the worst quarter for the Japanese economy since 1980. Japan's economy has fallen, reaching to 27.8% on annualized basis. Exportation had decreased to 56% at annual rate. Individual consumption had decreased to 29% at annual rate. In this period, the Japanese economy was suffering from stagnation due to the decrease in exportation, and they used to depend on export, which is used to cover the decrease in the consumption. However, this time the exportation has decreased, which makes the Japanese economy to face a stagnation. During the period of October to December in the same year, Japanese economy contracted, reaching to 1.8%, which is the beginning of recession in the first two quarters in 2020. During the period of July and September, Japan had a flat economic growth. The next quarter, the economy also started to show slight of growth.
So in 2021, as we can see in the chart, in the first quarter, the economy or the GDP has fallen by 5.1%, and in the next quarter it jumped to 11.6%. This deorientation was due to the decrease in the private consumption by approximately 1.4%, as the pandemic had decreased people's spending in buying clothes and dining out. In January of 2021, people had to wear protective masks throughout the day and during business hours until they arrived home and to be able to outbreak COVID-19 disease. During the period of April to June, the second quarter in 2021, the GDP growth rate was raised by 0.3% in comparison to earlier 1.3% on an annualized basis due to an increase in purchasing cars and company purchases of machines. This was the first time in 2 quarters. As the global demand for cars and electronics increased, Japan's export increased by 2.3%. Although consumer consumption and spending have decreased. The economic recovery was reinforced by increase in external demands, which increased exportations and governmental incentives. When it comes to the unemployment rate, the corporate industry did not have a negative impact till the end of March. The unemployment rate is not affected by COVID-19, it only falls down by 0.1%. You can learn this in the second question done by Samir, which the government made some incentives to help unemployment rate, which will be explained later. But on the May of 2021, the economy began to open gradually, and by the summer, business activities began to improve, and because the decrease in unemployment rates as a signal of improvements. Then retail sales began to increase and industry activities improved as well. On the other hand, the number of cases who were affected by COVID-19 after the decrease in May began to increase again in July and August. However, the second round of COVID-19 infection have impacted the corporate attitude.
Government and institutions has applied the following measures in response to COVID-19. Employment-related measures. Request for a change in work style. The government has recommended individuals and businesses to promote telework in order to prevent the spread of infection. The program of employment adjustment subsidies has been enlarged. The Ministry of Health, Labor and Welfare has agreed to increase and relax the eligibility restriction for the Employment Adjustment Subsidies Program. The Employment Adjustment Subsidies Program assists businesses that are experiencing a slump in business by providing leave allowances and allowing employees to take partially compensated leave. As a part of social measure that runs from April 1st to December 31, MHLW subsidies up to 100% of leave allowance for SMEs and up to 80% of leave allowance for large businesses. The daily payment per employee on leave is capped to 15,000 JPY per day. Economic stimulus measures. Monetary policy. The target for next exchange traded fund acquisitions has been raised to 12 trillion JPY. They agreed to coordinate international swap lines with the US Federal Reserve in order to reduce the cost of borrowing dollars abroad, creating a new facility that would provide zero-interest loans secured by corporate debt. Loan for large companies. To deal with the crisis, the Ministry of Finance decided to take out a loan. A low-interest loan has been given by the Development Bank of Japan. According to the Japanese media, the majority of the loans were made to the automobile and transportation industries. Low guarantee and cash benefits for SMEs. The Ministry of Finance has decided to use a safety net loan and a crisis response loan to assist SMEs. The Ministry of Finance has established one-of-a-kind loan program for novel coronavirus. The Ministry of Economy, Trade and Industry has agreed to implement the Safety Net Guarantee Program, as well as the Crisis-Related Guarantee Program to assist SMEs. Using prefectural directed credit initiatives, the government launched a no-interest unsecured loan provided by private financial institution. The Ministry of Economy, Trade and Industry established a subsidy schema to assist business in remaining solvent. This program primarily targets distressed businesses and provide them with the financial assistance for a variety of goals that are typically regarded for professional in helping them preserve or revive their operations.
I would like to talk about analysis of Japanese policies. In this slide, I'd like to assess the data. Although GDP decreased between 2019 and 2020, by 2021 it was higher than it had been before the corona spread. So Japanese economic policies and infection prevention have been success in this point. As for the unemployment rate, between 2020 and 2021, the rate fell from 2.79 to 2.78. So, the Japanese government employment measures are considered a success. Looking at a change of CPI and the figure for infected people, this graph shows that the CPI has fallen since March 2020 due to the rise in the number of people infected with coronaviruses, which is thought to have been caused by the slowdown in economic activity due to the spread of the coronaviruses. The graph also shows the price have risen despite the increase in the number of infected people due to telework and restriction on going out, indicating the success of the Japanese government's anti-infected policies and subsidies. I'd like to show the monetary policies. The June 2021 survey from the Bank of Japan shows that for large companies, the financial decision was harsh, but funding has improved since June 2020. I think this may be due to the success policy of low-interest loans issued by DBJ. Additionally, Lowe's survey shows that all industrial functions are showing an improving trend, although it declined significantly in May 2020. This may be due to the effect of the government's financial policies of loan guarantees, and cash transfers to SIMs. The number of company insolvencies has increased with the expansion of corona, but since March 2021, the number of insolvencies has decreased because of the aggressive lending attitude of financial institutions. However, while in-service trade has begun to increase, the recovery in out-of-services pay and special pay has been slower, pushing down cash pay lows, according to Mitsubishi Research Institution. In conclusion page, the coronavirus has a negative impact on Japanese economy. Thus, the government's policies in response to the recession have been largely success. But we do not think they have been a little less success in relation to pay. Thank you for reading.